Hey John, how are you?
There. How
I've
are you,
just
Matt?
well, you know that I'm on a high. We just had an admissions director panel with David, with Paula, with we had Asia School of Business at Darden, and then four extraordinary alums from some of the top European schools, including one young woman who was expecting as she applied to business school, and so went through an intensive year in Lausanne uh, with a partner who'd done the program the year before and with a child. So it's a fantastic experience. But
Yeah, I was watching. It was a very engaging panel, really. And really lovely people that you had on there.
yes, yeah, yeah, and you're sort of reminded from Amazon. We've seen the appetite that Amazon has had for MBA recruitment in the last few years, but others that are whether it's to do with water quality or in the world of art, this the doors that the MBA can open. And I guess in the 12 months of uncertainty that we've seen, this is what business school does so well. It opens doors to new opportunities.
That's really true. And yesterday we had a little pre-center court meeting with people who are attending today. And one of the issues that came up, and I thought this is kind of interesting, is exhaustion. It's a bit of a marathon to get into a great school like these schools. The acceptance rates are low. The majority of people are rejected. These are self-selecting applicant pools filled with incredibly qualified, great people, exceptional people on every level. Um, and you've got to do so much to get in. I mean, the preparation for a standardized test can be very significant for a lot of people who don't do standardized tests well. And that's a lot of people, including myself. You've got to make sure that your recommenders are coached and worked with so that you get the best possible recommendations. You have to go through a period of introspection to really know who you are and what you want out of life, so that the essays that you write to get into a school are genuine and authentic and meaningful. Then you have to go through this application process. There are many, many steps at many different schools. Many of the steps are different. Um, and then you get a rejection, and it's heartbreaking.
Right.
So how
And
do
you're doing all of this while holding down that sort of 75-hour a week job and
yeah,
volunteer work,
that's
community engagement.
that's a really good point, because most of the people who apply, of course, have incredibly demanding jobs. Um, these are not 40-hour-a-week jobs, and they demand every ounce of your energy. So how do you stay inspired? Now, you work with candidates all the time at Fortuna. How do you keep them going? How do you keep the momentum going when they hit, a spot where they question themselves, where they may have remorse about the entire process, where they're wondering, is it all for naught? Will it really come to anything? Will I be able to get into the dream school? What do you say to them?
We had a fascinating conversation with Judith and her Wharton background and Patty and her MIT Sloan background last week. Patty was talking about, the difference between motivation and determination and putting in, the work as you just laid out. It doesn't come easily. Interesting that David said, reaching out to your recommenders should be one of the first things that you do. I think taking a free online GMAT or GRE test just to get a baseline score, and from there you can get a sense of the amount of study that you might need to set aside for this. But being motivated, wanting it to happen, is not the same as determination to then put in all of that work. Um, that said, and we often see candidates that are struggling with data sufficiency and critical reasoning. And they've often commented that actually putting together the applications and enjoying that moment. Because if you've been through school, you've got that fast track position that you've kept your head down for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Here you get this chance to step back and really think about what you want. Some of the alumni panelists would talk about, I just knew that in terms of a sense of purpose, the impact of the work that I was looking to do. And I think that if you're deep in the weeds on GMAT study. I'd love to think that Centre Court contributes to the outreach, the conversations, hearing these inspiring people, even the admissions officers, and you understand how human they are and what it is that they're looking for. One of our panelists said, kind of abstract. Here we are, and you know better than any, because Poets and Quants has covered this so well in the last 12 months. We're looking at double-digit application volume growth. The first panel, they said, it's a heated market, and this year is just as busy as that big spike that we saw with the start of the pandemic. Well, set aside those other individuals, because it's about you and it's your story and how that will come across. So, we know that Harvard is probably going to smash the typical 10,000 applications. I don't know if you're going to put a number on it, John, but schools are seeing extraordinary growth. Well,
yeah.
Well, that's great, but this is your chance to really think, and that authenticity that you described, I think that's what comes across. And if you achieve that, you can really enjoy this journey.
And yet, amidst the growth is this great uncertainty. The schools don't know who they will yield, because we don't know with any great certainty what the travel restrictions might be for the fall matriculating class.
Right. Applicants are undoubtedly applying to more schools.
While we might assume that things are going to get close to normal, you don't know that with certainty. So there could be a lot of people who decide, you know what, I'm not going to sign up for a hybrid experience if that's what it's going to be. So there's uncertainty on the part of the schools, and of course, great uncertainty on the part of the candidates, which makes the flood of applicants into the pool a little more interesting dynamic, because the schools don't know when they admit someone who's really going to show up in the fall, given all this uncertainty.
Yeah. So we might have a kind of a rerun. Here we were with Centre Court, what was it, April last year. It had been 2-3 months. GMAT testing centers were closing. Schools were scrambling. They were extending their deadlines, some as late as July for an August-September class start. And I think, many viewers might be thinking about, should I apply this year? Am I too late for September? As you said, given the degree of uncertainty, schools will be running wait lists, but have no real sense of the yield that they will achieve. Harvard Business School lost 220 of their admits last year. That was, 25% of the class.
Yeah.
So, I suppose we're looking at round 3 for those US schools in early April, or the round 3, round 4 that many of the European schools still have open. And given that degree of uncertainty, if the time feels right, you still could be within a very good shot applying in one of the later rounds.
And Matt, another question that came up is, and we're all familiar with this, having been in this business for so many years, all the people, often prominent, who are naysayers about the MBA degree, the latest being Elon Musk.
Right.
And for someone who is thinking about making this step, it's a big step. It's a big investment in time, big investment in money. You've got to quit your job. If you look at the price tags on the programs, they're exceedingly high and scary for many people who know they have to go into debt. And then you have people like Elon Musk and others, and there have been many of them, who have said, it's a waste of time. The MBA isn't worth it. You don't really need it to be successful in business. And you have people like that placing doubts in the heads of people that we know would greatly benefit from this remarkable learning experience. And I say to them, there are 2 things that are the most generous gifts you can give yourself. The first is a friend, and the second is education. And don't deny yourself the opportunity to invest in who you are and who you want to become. And don't let someone who makes a stray, uninformed comment, no matter who they are, Elon Musk or anyone else, demotivate you, convince you not to invest in yourself, not to give yourself the second most generous gift you can give, which is the value of higher education, the ability to meet amazing people, to make enduring friendships over a lifetime that will be both encouraging to you on a personal and a professional level, and give you skills and tools that will, in fact, make a very big difference for you to live a more fulfilled life.
Well, we've seen Elon Musk's throwaway remarks getting into trouble on Twitter, moving the Bitcoin market last week, and I guess until 2.5 hours ago, he was the world's wealthiest man. So might have some interesting things to say. But I think the market's
who's moving production to Texas? Good luck, buddy.
So the market's just wiped 25 billion off his net worth, but we should still listen to him. But I mean, it's interesting, of course, because wider industry, tech in general. If you go back, 15 years ago, that there was this sort of naysayers of the NBA, and now look at the appetite that they have. That there's Microsoft, run by a Booth MBA, and doing an extraordinary job. I mean, you don't need to go to business school to make a success of your life, but we know that life with friends is a much better experience, and I would extend that, as you said, to education and all that it offers. I mean, for 99.9%, Musk might, in a way, he's the exception that proves the rule. But also, not just as it advances your career and what you might be able to contribute at Tesla or SpaceX or anywhere else, but you also look at individuals that have made that investment and a personal journey, an imposter syndrome that they felt. Now they feel that they have a voice, they have a confidence, they have a network. So, the rankings that measure simply the salary and career progress that you make, but everybody talks about it being so much more. So, I think a great investment and will remain so.
Now, in your first panel, Matt, did any of the AdComs even hint at what they think classes will be like in the fall of this year?
I asked them if they were seeing new entrants into the applicant pool. We always have the bankers, the consultants, the engineers, and with stricken industries, whether that's airlines, hospitality, they are seeing people come in from other sectors that might not otherwise have been considering business school at this point, and that for them is great. Very interesting. Given how experienced they are. David Simpson has been in the business schools industry as long as you and I have. Paula at IESA,
yes.
And just their ability to navigate the course. Will be Kirsten Moss is joining us from Stanford tomorrow. I remember the comment that she made at the last Center Court in October, describing, we pretty much managed to land the plane where we wanted to. And as they think about that in terms of, URMs, gender balance, the sort of profiles, they navigate a very tricky path and the yield issues that you were describing. But no, I mean, I think classes will be full. And David made the comment, he said, we have to be that much, how did he say it? I know that viewers can watch the video, but he said, choosing who to invite for interview with this sort of volume, that early stage, that's when we really have to, make the first decision. And he says it's hard, even at that early stage of the process, you're turning down some great people, but
yeah.
The pool is very deep and very broad. So I think in all of that, those individuals that do share that authentic voice and have been thoughtful about, where business school fits in and putting together their applications are sure to shine irrespective of their background. So again, not second guessing, do they have, all of the white guys in finance that they're looking for, or are they overrepresented, from the big four or certain parts of the world? It's your story that might catch their attention. Now, a question, because readers are sending in, I'm going to, Ricardo's asked us, we've just had 8 voices from 8 of the top European business schools through the UK, France, Spain, Switzerland, Germany. And so Ricardo said, what is the value proposition after doing an MBA in Europe and then coming back to the US? How do you think it works in that direction, John?
Well, I think it depends on which school you're from and how well you use the alumni network. Uh, Clearly, it could be more difficult than it would be going to a U.S. business school. I often say that, geography is destiny. Um, and that could be, you want a job in the Midwest, you're more likely to go to a school in the Midwest. You want a job in New York, Boston, Washington, you should be more likely to go to a school in that area. But of course, it's not impossible. And all the great European schools have many alums in the United States. Um, Many of them work for US companies, but many of them work for multinationals. So I think the clue here is have that honest conversation with the school beforehand.
Hmm.
Ask to be connected to alumni who are doing exactly what you want to do. Phone them up, have these conversations, do your research to give you the assurance that what your dream is can be realized.
Hmm. Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
your
and we talked about the M of an MBA being about mobility, and arguably it could be for migration in many cases. We've seen, expecting that post-US election, I think so many international applicants were waiting on the results of that election. 3-4 years of the rhetoric coming out of the White House, uncertainty around H-1B. And I can, already at Fortuna, we're seeing how many international applicants jumped in for round two. I think, they feel a renewed confidence. So it does offer you that mobility. Some schools certainly have a stronger network than others, hence the importance of those sort of questions and finding out how they will fare. But, even if people have tried to close borders, this isn't a remarkably connected world. You've got classmates coming in from all over the world and may well find that Fortune 500 company loves the fact, singles you out because you studied in Spain or in Germany, in Italy, Switzerland, France, the UK, and it just gives that international dimension that they're looking for. So, it's what you make of it.
Also,
Now, I think,
I should add, and I think this is an important point. The truth is that the mainstream employers of MBAs, whether it be McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Deloitte, Accenture, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, all recruit internationally.
hmm,
And so they know the game. They will know the institution you went to. They will know the value of the degree. And to the extent that the mainstream employers hire globally, that shouldn't be as big a problem as it might be considered.
yeah, and maybe rather than applying straight to Mountain View, you start with that international post and you can head to the West Coast at the next stages of your career. So, it's not all what happens immediately after you come out of the MBA.
And Matt, we
Well,
have a question here
the
as
next
well.
panelists are, yeah, yeah, that's true.
And
So I think,
this other question is about what will the learning experience be like in the fall? Will it be hybrid? Will it be online? Will it be in person? Did any
I
of
think,
the adcoms hazard a guess?
I think just as the admissions offices have, they've got a year now of experience of navigating the pandemic and as their outreach and admissions, the schools haven't sat still. And I think, none of us can accurately predict how this continues to evolve. But I think that there'll be a level of preparedness in September. We were fighting fires for bringing the incoming class of September 2020. So these multimodal ways of learning that Imperial and others have adopted, clearly schools, INSEAD with its Singapore campus, IMD was confident to bring people to Lausanne in very safe conditions.
Right.
So yeah, no, I think it will be cautious, but I think there will be campus. And I think obviously as you then extend that through the rest of the year, and then, hey, come out into the job market of the summer of 2022, summer of 2023, depending on the length of your program. And the world is there, to put back on its feet, right? So, yeah. I think we need to make way for the panelists that are joining you for the next
Yes.
admissions director panel.
And we have four
So
really great schools coming up. Rotterdam School of Management, which I think is a real hidden gem in Europe, which adheres closely to the UN protocols on sustainability and social good. We have Indiana Kelley, a really terrific school in the Midwest. We have Miami, which has done a really great job in the south of the United States. And we have ESIC, which will be really interesting to hear from. And
good international mix. The New York Times says that New York and the West Coast are all heading to Miami. So that might have an interesting story there. So enjoy your panel.
Tori will get us. Will and Matt, thank you. It's great to see you again.
You too, and we'll catch up and talk all things BizEd again same time tomorrow.
Sounds good. Matt, take care.
Okay.